with us for a few days this week. And she is 3. And she can be pretty good, but she can be a handful. And Peg just thought it would be easier to not be having to chase her around and keep her entertained every time she comes out here and with us for a few days this week. Okay, so for some reason that always wants to
kick on.
Yeah. You probably are unfamiliar with who Peppa Pig is, but it's a little British cartoon. I don't even know if they still make them anymore. I think they do. So she speaks with a British accent. So as a result, my granddaughter has, I think my daughter put this yesterday on Facebook, about 75% of the time she sounds like she's speaking a British accent. 3 years old, raised by 2 Washingtonians, and she speaks with a British accent. So, but my daughter says of the shows that she could watch, she watches this one because she's very polite and she speaks in complete sentences. You'll say, "Do you want this?" And she goes, "Yes, grandmother, I would," or Grammy. It's Grammy because that's what it is in Peppa. Grammy, because I would like that. Things like that. Or would you like this? No, thank you, Grammy. So you're just like, so maybe there's some wins in her having become very obsessed with this little cartoon. So, okay. I'm going to pull this up for you on share my screen so that we can see these sentences. I just got done typing them up. It took me a while. I should have done this last night, but it didn't even occur to me until I sat down this morning. I should have these sentences typed up.
And you're typing the Greek sentences?
I'm just typing out the Greek sentences.
On your English keyboard. How does that work? Typing
them in Greek. If you really are interested in doing this, what you need to do is you can do this. I use a Apple, a MacBook Pro, but you should be able to go into your keyboards, and you can do this on a PC also. You can go into your system software. You can find where the keyboard is, and in there you can choose different languages. And so I have chosen a Greek keyboard, and I have a set of keystrokes on my keyboard because I don't like having to go over there and do that every time I need to type. So I got a set of keystrokes that I hold a couple of keys down and it switches over to the Greek keyboard or the Hebrew keyboard and then back to English as I want. I have to tap through it a couple of times. But then what you're actually doing is you really are typing in Greek. And this is not Greek class, but when people were developing these languages, here is the chart of all the different letters. This box is representative of the chart of all the letters. And so our English letters, let's just say, are up in this, maybe I should make that darker, but they're up in this segment. So here's our English. And when you switch to the Greek keyboard, let's say you're switching to a segment of keys down here. And so you don't even have to have a Greek font. You can just type in any font. Some fonts don't render the Greek as well as others, but it's actually moving the keyboard to a whole different place. So it's not just changing it to a Greek font. Now, I'd like to know how to do that on my phone.
You do the same thing. You go into your settings, go to keyboards, and then you add a Greek keyboard.
Well, of course. That only makes sense. Anyway, but that's what's happening. But it's yeah, I've got flies down here giving me trouble this morning. Anyway, so that's how you actually can get to a Greek keyboard and type in Greek, and it works nice. The only thing is you have to figure out where letters are.
Right.
On the standard Greek keyboard, the W, which in my mind would be an omega,
Right.
is a final sigma. I don't know why they chose to lay it out that way. The Y is your upsilon, but that's because in Greek, they treat, I think in modern Greek, they treat the upsilon more like a Y. So you just have to kind of find out how the keyboard's laid out. but it's actually really helpful because I get, and this is one of the benefits of it, because I've written, I don't know, I write all the time. So I've written, I couldn't say 100 paper, that's exaggeration. So let's say 70 papers over the years. And some of those papers, then I would have a font, Greek font. And so I would type the Greek or the Hebrew in Greek and Hebrew fonts. Well, then if you send that to somebody else, if they don't have that Greek or Hebrew font, it doesn't render. So then they get this gibberish. But if you type it in actually the Greek text, then when you send that to them, doesn't make any difference what font they're using. It knows that that segment of words right there in the middle are the Greek text, and it switches over and it represents that, whether you're sending it as a PDF or sending them a Word document or a Pages document or whatever you're doing. So it's actually a very helpful thing to understand. And I had to learn it from a professor back in Pennsylvania that had written a blog on how to set this up, because I was so frustrated with the fact that fonts were getting changed all the time. And then you had to reset all your fonts. And okay, so I believe if I have this marked right, I think we've gotten to the bottom on our worksheet pages of page 19. We've gotten down to number 7. So we're going to start with, again, translating and then going through each part of this. And we'll just each take a turn going around. So this would be number 7. And these, by the way, if you are not following along in the new Summers textbook that was revised by Thomas Sawyer, and you're following along in the what I call the old red Summers text, the one I grew up with or learned Greek on, those are the sentence exercises at the end. And so that's what he's doing. It's just that they're breaking a lot more details out. So here we go. So sentence number 7.
Oh, well, we'll start with 7.
Yes. So why don't you, Robin, why don't you take the first one?
Lepamen tus oikus ton adelphon.
Okay. And translated?
And I translated that. We see the houses of the brothers, or the brothers' houses.
Okay. Everybody can hear that?
Yes.
Okay. So the verb
Lepamen is a verb. You want me to go
yes, just
top
go
to bottom or left to
top.
right?
Let's go top to bottom.
Okay. So present tense, active voice, indicative mood, first person plural. The lexical form is blepo. The stem is blep. The ending is amen. The connecting vowel is omicron, and the subject is we.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Top of page 20, at least in my text.
Is oikus the indirect or direct object? I said it was the direct object because it's in the accusative tense.
Case.
Case, yes, not tense.
And furthermore, if it's a direct object, it answers what question?
Who the action, who or what the action is happening to.
That's right. So we can say, Blepomen, in this case, we see what?
Houses.
We see the houses. Exactly. Okay. Number 8, Joe.
Uioi,
Yes.
ton anthropon agusin tus doulos.
Okay.
And then the sons of the men are leading the slaves.
Okay.
That's how I got it translated.
Okay.
And
What?
the
Yeah.
subject is ha gusin, which is the sons. How can I be sure? Well, it's the way it's ending. It's That was a Augustine, right? I wrote down the sons. I don't know why I wrote that. I was working on this last week.
You're right. You're right.
How can I be sure? It's the way the verb is. It ends, or
Well, but it also has to do with your subject and what was the word you chose?
the subject of that is the sons of Augustine, right?
Right.
It's leading, right?
Exactly.
And leading is the word verb. So the subject is the sons. The sons are leading the men.
Right. And how
Talking
do you,
about the sons.
and how do you
And
know?
the men are the indirect object, and the sons of the men are the quality. That's the men is going to see the relationship or the genitive form of, and so the sons are this object. There's a genitive form describing the relationship of who they're the sons of the men, and they're leading the slaves. So the slaves are the indirect object, or the accusative.
The accusative, they're the direct object. Slaves
Or
are
the direct object, excuse me. Yeah, the accusative.
okay.
So that's how I just knew that. I just, by deduction, I just said, well, that's how I'm sure.
The way you can be sure that the sons are the subject of the verb here is that they are in the what case?
Oh, the sons are in the, that's in the plural nominative case, in a plural masculine, right?
Exactly. And what does the nominative case? How does it function?
It's the subject.
The subject. So that's how you know for sure.
Okay, well, yeah. Very good.
There you go.
So I should write that it was in a nominative case. That's why.
Case, yes.
Did your mom, oh, there's two more.
Now number B, right, which you already kind of addressed, the function of tone anthropon.
Right. I put it was I said it was a genitive. It's a relationship description of the sons. So the men, they're right. And it's a genitive case.
Yes.
Right.
Very good.
And then doulos, okay, is I put part of speech as a noun. It's accusative case in the plural number. I guess the function of the sentence would be the object of the action or the direct object. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Gender's masculine. The lexical form is doulos, and it's the second declension.
It is. And the only thing is and it might be my hearing, just to make sure, we would pronounce the form as it occurs in there, doulos.
Doulos. Yeah, right. Doulos.
Remember, the Omicron upsilon is like OU in group.
Okay.
Rather than the short O like we have in doulos.
Okay, right. Doulos. Correct.
Okay. And it's just the three of us now again. So,
Okay.
so number 9.
Lambano dora carpone kai artu.
Okay.
And I said, I receive gifts. And I didn't actually finish translating it. I'm thinking of bread and fruit. Fruit and bread gifts.
Can I take a stab at that?
Go ahead.
I put, because it's in present active indicative, it's ongoing. So I put, I am receiving gifts
Mhm.
of fruit and bread.
Okay. This is actually a really good sentence. Well, let's go through the different other answers below here, and then we'll come back and address
All right.
this other question.
Okay.
So the subject,
Yeah, lambano. Is the subject lambano expressed? Yes, the subject is I, based on, oh, that's really funny. I wrote some shorthand in here to try and be quick.
okay.
And then as I'm looking back at it, I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay.
That's what I do. I do the same thing.
Present active indicative first person singular form is what I put there. The subject is I based on the form of the verb.
Okay. Based on, we'd say the ending. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And parse lambano. Okay, it's a verb. The subject is I. The stem is lamban. Present tense, active voice, indicative mood, first person, singular, lexical form, lambano.
Okay.
Oh, there's another question. Okay, are carpo and R2 genitive or ablative? What are they descriptive of? Don't they kind of answer their own question, the second question? I said genitive, and they are descriptive of the gift.
Okay. Now this is actually a really good sentence to demonstrate. I think I said when I took beginning Greek, we always treated genitives, we always translated them of, which we can translate this of. He receives gifts of fruits and bread. But we always were taught that the genitive was the case of relation. So it was like the man's son. So we'd say, well, it's a son that belongs to the man, which is kind of what we had back up above here, where it said, it said the sons of the man. Okay. Whereas this is a good place to demonstrate where the genitive can simply function as simple descriptive, because we would say, just for clarification, the gifts that consist of fruit and bread. I think we all understand that. When we say of gifts of fruit and bread, we all go, but they got fruit and bread.
Right.
We understand that. That's not hard. But you're going to have some passages in the New Testament where you're going to have the genitive, and because of the way people because the way people have been trained to understand certain passages, and I think inaccurately so, you need to clarify it almost by saying consisting of. You almost have to add that consisting of to explain what the genitive is telling you in this case, which is accurate here. I receive gifts consisting of fruits and bread, but you don't have to say that. This is a simple sentence. It's fairly clear. And I should have come up with one of the more complex sentences out of the scripture where adding consisting of, I think, clarifies what you're saying to the genitive. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So then my other question is, I translated it, I receive, and then Joe is translating it, I am receiving. And in my mind, those are the same thing. Does it matter?
It is. It's a matter of how vivid you want to translate it. I have some textbooks that they think, unless there's something else in the context, to just say I receive, they would suggest you always translate I am receiving to really give the present tense punch. I don't think it's necessary, but it does maybe add a little bit more of the punch to it. I receive, when we translate I receive gifts, that is what, when you go on to advanced grammar, that's what we interpret as probably what we call a gnomic present, which means it's something that kind of describes a state or condition of things. In other words, this is kind of always the way it is. It may not happen every day, but it's regular. Mm-hmm. It's a regular thing. Like you could say, I receive a paycheck from my boss.
Versus
what constantly?
Right.
Yeah.
Versus this is something happening, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just kind of talking about that this is kind of my way of life, is receiving a paycheck from my boss. I receive, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so either way is correct. I would say, as you're translating and when you're looking at it in scripture, you're going to find out that some translations are going to be, they're going to bring more clarity or nuance to the text than others, depending on the context. Again, context is the big. Okay, Joe, number 10.
Okay. That's graphamen tois adelphois.
Very good.
But again, in the same reason I put, instead of we write, I put we are writing.
Sure.
The Amen tells me it's a we. So to the brothers, I wrote, Instead of saying two brothers, I just, well, the brothers there, so I just put the writing two inside
Yeah.
there. I slipped it in. Okay. So,
And I'm, whether I'm lazy or whether this is just the way I take the present tense, I've done the same thing. I had I receive and we write. So I'm,
yeah,
rather than,
I just try to keep it present, ongoing,
that's fine.
linear, right? I try to keep it progressive. So I just say, okay, we are writing.
Yes.
Okay. Only because we're in that section. So, all right.
We'll go.
And it says, does Grauman express linear, undefined, or perfected? I put linear, action is ongoing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
How can you determine the gender of adelphos? I just went to the lexical form, adelphos, and it's a masculine.
Exactly. Because there's nothing else that's going to tell you in there, because the ending and the definite article are the same as what?
Masculine and.
That's
And neuter. That's right.
And
So
neuter,
that's
right.
why you have to, so you were right, Joey. That's why you have to go back to the lexical form.
right.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
What were you going to say about that
Oh,
writing then?
I was just gonna say that the only reason that I wouldn't go there, I appreciate Joe's insight though, is just because when we learn them as, oh my gosh. Vocabulary, when we learn them as vocabulary words, it's I do it, you do it, they, her, he, she, or it does it,
Right.
we do it, y'all do it, they do it.
Yes.
And so that just naturally goes that way for me, but
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I have not been writing mine. I'm not translating mine. I am, and then whatever the verb is with an ing on the end. I've just been putting I in the verb or they in the verb, whatever it is. That might be lazy for me on my part, doing it that way.
okay.
But I just keep in mind is just that we're in a, it's a linear progressive. So that's a better way for me to express this. I am doing this, or we are doing this, or he is doing this, or they are doing this.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing, like I said, and unless the context tells you otherwise, I think that's probably wise to give the sense. I killed flies earlier. I probably already told you that, and I've still got one that's buzzing around here. Okay, number 11.
11. Blepoton kurion to oiko. I see the Lord at the house.
Okay.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So how do I know if it's at or in, or I don't know on that one, in the house or at the house, or I wasn't sure how to do that.
Okay. So why did you choose at the house?
Well, I decided that to oiko was locative.
Okay.
Both express location, in or at.
They do.
I don't know. I no reason. There was no special reason. I don't think that I chose at. I think
So let me ask you
I
a
just
question.
kind of, yeah.
What is something we don't have here with this sentence? Something we do not have that would maybe give us clarity.
Context.
We don't have exactly. Because we have passages of scripture. I was just reading these in Mark last week, where Jesus twice in the early chapters of Mark enters the house of somebody. And it's actually very clear by the verb. He doesn't just go to the house, he enters the house. So in that context, if somebody were to say, I see the Lord in the house, that would make more sense in that case than to say at the house.
Right.
But if you simply said that the Lord came to somebody's house, doesn't tell you specifically that he entered, then at might also be, by that context, acceptable. So it's context is going to be the thing that's going to help us. And this is one of the things that you have to learn. Sometimes when people learn Greek, they think it's going to settle all their questions. What it's going to do is it's going to limit some things. But at the other hand, you're going to have to make a case for why you do this. And when I was in seminary, this is what we did with Greek. For a good chunk of our second year was we were given sentences that we were in things we were working on, and we had to do that. And then we had to get up and we had to defend what we did. And defend it even if the other students were going, well, why that? Why not this? And,
Sure.
so. Okay, so number A under 11 then.
Why is nominative noun not necessary? I put because of the verb form.
Okay,
Indicates I.
that's right.
What case is kurion in this sentence and what is the significance? And again, kurion is not what I wrote down here, but it is accusative.
Mhm.
And what is the significance of this case? It tells us who the direct object is. So
Okay. So
this is who we saw.
So again, it's answering the question, who or what, yeah.
Mhm.
Any questions?
No.
Okay,
I must have been rushing when I did this.
Okay, number 12.
just a second here. I have a note here that I've written to myself as a contrast. If you have a Bible there, let's just take a quick look at this in John 9. Don't want to skip over. We have some scriptures that are helpful. John 9 and, I'm in John 8. Yeah, no wonder. It's like I don't see my verb that I'm looking for. So John 9:25 says, therefore, that one responded, if he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that I was being blind, now I see. And you could translate it, I am seeing, but this is an interesting place. And I marked this because this one is one that does not have a definite article, or excuse me, one that does not have a direct object. And that's the reason I'm showing that, because it's a good passage to show that you don't always have to have an object to a verb. The blind man here is simply saying, I was blind, now I see. Or now I am seeing, and you don't have to have a direct object. You don't have to say, well, what do you see? You can say, I see everything. I can, everywhere I look, I can see. So he's contrasting lack of sight to the ability to see. Whereas our statement here is that I see something very specific here. So to me, it was just it was a good place to demonstrate that you don't have to have an object for every verb. I think that makes sense. Okay.
But you don't have to have an object for every verb.
Right. Sometimes the verb is just stating, this is the case. This is what it is. I see. I see. I used to not be able to see. Now I see. Okay. Number 12.
Okay, 12. Oi, apostoloi, genoskusin, ton nomen kai didaskusin tus anthropus.
Okay.
Right, translated as the apostles know the law and are teaching the men.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
What's that?
Apostolos loi is a part speech. It's a noun. It's a nominative case in the plural number. It's the subject. Gender's masculine. Lexical form is apostolos. Los.
Apostolos. Yeah.
Apostolos. Second declension.
Okay.
What function does noumon serve in this sentence? I wrote it's the direct object in the singular. accusative. What about the other one? It's also a direct object, but in a plural. That's the anthropos.
So why in this sentence do we have two direct objects?
Because they're both the object of the action, both of them. They're both receiving the they're both, well, they know the law and are teaching men. Is that okay? They know the law. The apostles know the law.
Mhm.
I put, and they are also teaching. There's two verbs.
There's two verbs. That's actually the verb. That's the simple answer. There's two objects, one for each verb.
Right.
So one for know and one for teaching. Okay. You are going to have sometimes two objects with one verb. You might say they're teaching men and women, or free men and slaves or something like that. So, but in this case, it's because we have two verbs. Okay, go on with.
Okay, does cuisine express progressive or perfected action? Put progressive action.
Okay.
Ongoing.
And you translated it to really express that by saying that, and they are teaching. Yeah.
Are teaching, correct.
Yeah. So.
That's where, when I got to that, that's when I went back actually and changed everything to R and M, because I was like looking at that and I go, they know the law and teach them in, or they are teaching them in. So that's when I got to 12 is when I went back and changed my answers for the previous ones. It just kind of dawned on me at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll try to see if I can find some other examples. I was thinking of a passage at the end of Acts chapter 2, but it's in a different tense, but it also is expressing something that's continuous, just in a different tense. And so there might be a time and a place where we might say the apostles, they know the law, and then we would say, and they teach men, meaning, are they teaching men right now? Well, maybe not now they're teaching men, but it is what they do on a regular basis. And so sometimes we might say they teach men. And there was the one I was thinking of over in the end of the book of Acts, or Acts chapter 2, states over there talking about the church that they were continuing in the apostles' doctrine. And then taking their meals from house to house every day. So every day the church was eating together. And did that mean they ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner? No, it was meaning that every day at the end of their work day, they all took their suppers together, gathering in the houses for an evening of fellowship and teaching. So
in that example, if I might ask, if it was the apostles know the law and teach men, it would still be didaskosin or didaskosin anthropos? Would you take the article out of there?
No, you could.
It'd still be the same.
Because the article simply is telling you that it's a specific group of men that they're talking about. So they could be teaching a specific group of men every day.
So again, that would be just by context to know that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I think like when I went to seminary, my professors, they didn't just teach anybody willy-nilly. They taught the men that were in seminary that showed up every day, for class. So, but they weren't teaching Tuesday nights. Well, that's not true. They did teach classes on Tuesday. Let's say Thursday nights they weren't teaching. So they could at that
time. Would it be okay though? Is it appropriate, or would it correct to just take out the tous out of there between the didaskosin and
if you took the tous out there, then you would simply saying that they teach those who are men, those that are people, quality of people in different ways. So by using the definite article, they're actually defining that there's a specific group of men that they're instructing, and the context would indicate who so that you would know why they're using the definite article there.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask one more question.
Yeah.
We're spending a lot of time on this one sentence, but so I really wanted it to be that the apostles know the law and they teach it to the men. So would there be another word in there to indicate that they're teaching the men the law, or can this,
Um,
and does this sentence necessarily mean that?
Not particularly. It might by context indicate that, because you have sometimes words that are left out that are implied, but implied words are tricky.
Right.
Normally, if you were going to have this written to say what you are saying, you would then have, let's erase this real quick. You would have, after the word teaching, then you would have it, which you don't know it yet, but you would have auton, which is the accusative pronoun. It, he, she, or it. Well, he or it, not she, because it would be feminine then. And then men would change over to tois,
Okay.
anthropois. So you change men over to a dative.
So
That's what I was thinking about as well. Like back in that previous thing where you say didascosin tous anthropous, if we said didascosin anthropois, making it dative, would that work?
If you wanted to emphasize that there was another object, such as which Robin is saying, that they teach it, namely the law, to the men. There are some scenarios in which you have a double object that you have to separate out, and it's not like saying they're teaching men and women. It's different. It's a different object. They're teaching this and this, or to this thing. But most of the time, if you're going to emphasize a direct object being communicated to somebody else, you change the last words to the dative case.
Okay.
Okay. So that's a good question on how to understand what they're doing. And again, the thing we don't have is we don't have context to tell us exactly, which is it's an excellent thing for you two to be thinking about. Anybody that's working on Greek here, to be thinking about context is so important on the way we read it. And we take that for granted because we speak English all the time, and English is in context. And if you're a non-English speaker and you're trying to learn English, there's things that we're going to say that sound kind of strange and bizarre, but to us, it makes perfect sense. There's a context in which we say that. One of the examples, here's an example that I remember taking in first year Greek, is if you're going to put your car away in a garage, how do you say that? It's out in the driveway, and using the verb drive, how do we usually say that? We say, I drive the car in the garage, or I drove the car in the garage. And a non-English speaker hears that and goes, I thought you drive the car in the road. Why would you drive in a garage? There's no place to go. See, because they understand drive as like taking a trip, going down the road, traveling like that. Where we use drive that way, that we don't have a problem with that. So if anybody that's a native English speaker hears that, they're going, oh, I know what you do. You put the car away in the garage. Right. We know what you mean. But the non-native English speaker, without the context, it's strange. So that there's context is so important for us all the time.
Yeah,
okay.
And we probably wouldn't even say drive the car into the garage. Just go park it in the garage.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it was a Midwestern thing because we a lot.
I don't know.
I drove the car in the garage.
I know. I was thinking I wouldn't use the word drive at all in that.
At all. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna park in the garage.
Well, we probably would use the past. I think probably when I was growing up, we would have used the past tense. I drove the car in the garage, So.
But I get what you're saying. That you're right.
Yeah. Okay, number 13.
Whose turn is it?
I believe it's yours.
Oh. Okay, number 13. Hoi anthropoi blepusin apostolus to hiero kaito oiko. The men, so now I've got Joe in my head. are seeing, the men see apostles at the temple and the house.
Okay.
Or I suppose it could be also in the temple and the house,
Mhm.
in and in. Why is the movable new expected in the phrase blepusen? Because lepusi would end with a vowel and then the next word starts with a vowel.
Mhm.
So they add that for making it easier to say, I suppose.
Precisely.
Locate apostolus. Part of speech, it is a noun. Because I was going fast and I wrote the wrong answer in here a few times, I'm now concerned that I did it again. I don't think I did. In the accusative case, it's plural, masculine. Second declension, the lexical form is apostolos, and it is the subject, or no, it is the object of the sentence. Are hyro and oiko dative, locative, or instrumental? How can you be sure? I said locative because they tell us where it happened.
Okay. Now this one, this honestly is a sentence that I would be inclined to translate. The men see apostles. I would be less likely to translate it, the men are seeing apostles, because I think what he's saying is he's saying something that is happening regularly is that the men, they see apostles, they see him in the temple and they see him in the house. But it doesn't mean that right now they're seeing him in both places. They are seeing them in the temple and they are seeing him in the house right now. So I think that this is one of these that would be a little bit more of a gnomic presence, just saying that this is common. It's really common that men see apostles in the temple and the house. So this is a place, even without context, that I think they see probably, or the men see probably is a little bit clear, probably matches the rest of the sentence. I hope that that's understandable. And it's because we have two places. If it was just one of those, the men see the apostles and are seeing them in the apostles in the temple. Okay, we get that. Or they are seeing them in the house. But because we have two locations, it's like there's two different places. And when they're over here, they happen to see them there. And they happen to be over the house, they see them over there. So it's like, so it's just talking about kind of something that's kind of a regular occurrence that they're observing this. So this is and I hope that that's clear kind of why I personally would be inclined to translate it that way. Because we have those two separate objects, two separate places. And so it's just saying regularly where they are going. If you translate it are, I don't have a problem with that. But in my mind, just saying that they see I think kind of fits the nature of that sentence a little bit better. Okay, Joe, number 14.
Okay. That's Huangalas, Legai, Lugus, Thanatum, Tois, Anthrop,
Thanatu.
Thanatu, right. Oh, that's a U. Thanatu, Tois, Anthropois, Kai, Tois, Weois.
Okay.
And I put the angel or messenger is speaking words of death to the men and to the sons. That's what I put. I put the angel or messenger. I guess it could be angel or the messenger is speaking words of death to the men and to the sons.
That's good.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, that is.
Okay. Legai.
We got
Part of speech is a verb. Subject is the angel or messenger. The stem is leg. It's a present tense, active. Mood is indicative. Third person singular. and the lexical form is Lego.
Okay.
And then twice is, how is it used? It's a dative case in a plural number. It's a neuter. It's a definite article. Not sure what I put for function in the sentence there, but it's a lexical form. It's to. I'm not sure what function of the sentence I didn't have an answer for that. I didn't know what to put.
I didn't either. I
Okay.
question.
I didn't know what the function is, other
Okay.
than it's a definite article.
Let's go back up there to the
Okay.
sentence. Hangalas legai lagus thanatu tois. Okay. It's
Tois anthropos. Tois is that's the article, right?
it's the definite article.
Definite article.
Okay. So let's go back down to gender. You put neuter for the gender,
Correct.
but what gender is anthropos? If you go
It's
back,
a masculine.
masculine. So then what does the definite article have to be? It also,
That means it's masculine.
it's also masculine. Yeah.
Oh.
The only way that you're going to know what the gender is
Okay.
back to the lexical form of the
So-
noun.
Okay. So the gender is masculine because of what it's defining, which is the anthropos.
That's right. Yes, because it's
Mm.
making that definite. Very good. And so
So the function is what? What would you say for function in a sense?
I'll see. And mine, you guys have newer ones than I do because mine
I
doesn't.
don't
have
know what,
function.
other than that, it's a definite article. So
Its function is a definite article. So what it's doing is it's making men definite. It's talking about, in the context, specific group of men, something like that, rather than just men in general. If you didn't have that, and it simply says the angel speaks words of death to men, it could just be to any man, any place. But I'm presuming because he says the men and these sons, he's talking about like a messenger showing up and talking to a specific group of men and a specific group of sons, which the context would indicate what that was.
So part of speech is definite article, function in the sense also definite article. Then.
Well, or to make the word definite, yeah, and because there's different ways that definite articles serve different purposes. I mean, why do you make a word definite? Because there's something you want to pinpoint, and you want people to say that thing. And what thing? Well, that thing I was just talking about back there 3 sentences ago. Not a whole
Make
new
man definite. Okay.
Yeah. Here you can learn it. This is one of the things I remember learning. I thought I learned really cool Greek. This even before I went to seminary. Article of previous reference. Boy, I sounded really, I felt so scholarly learning that. All it simply is saying, sometimes a definite article is simply telling you to look back there at the thing I just talked about. That one, not a different one. That one I just talking about there. But that's the way definite article can function. Let me ask you a question now before we move on from this. When it says words of death, if you were to translate that in a little bit more of an expanded translation, what other word might you add there for clarification? The angel speaks words of death. This may be right or it may be wrong, but in my mind, there's another word.
I actually said words about death.
That's exactly where my mind goes. Words about death.
About death.
And that's just, all that's doing is adding, I think, some clarity. But again, that is something that to some degree has to kind of be determined by context. Okay.
Mainly because when I made it words of death, I didn't know what that might mean.
Right.
What are words of death?
Exactly.
Just talking about death.
Right. And you just used the word about again.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. And by the way, this is another interesting thing. When he says words about death, there's not a definite article with either one of those. So it's not these specific words. about the specific death. It's just they're speaking some general words. They've got something general or something that they're saying, and it's in some way, it's about death in that way, contrasted to these specific group of men and these specific group of sons. So to me, that is maybe a good illustration of sometimes the difference between using a definite article and not using a definite article. Okay, number 15. I got 2 more to go here.
Haglas thelai blopain tom kurion. The crowd wishes to see the Lord.
Okay.
What part of speech is blepine? What part of speech? Wow, Robin, holy Moses. Oh, is this right? It's an infinitive, serves as a verb and a noun?
Yes.
Okay.
An infinitive, I would just say it's an infinitive verb.
Okay.
Is maybe the way I would put it.
What case is kurion? Accusative. It is the object of the sentence. Yes, right? Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, this, and when we talk about infinitives kind of being like a verb and a noun, there's a certain sense here that blepine, even though it's an infinitive verb, sort of also functions a little bit like in the nominal sense, like an accusative, because it says the crowd desires or wishes what? Yeah, to see. And then to see what? The Lord. So you can see, you kind of have those piled up. That makes sense? Okay. Joe, number 16.
Okay. Oi, weoi, ferocin, lithos to oiko.
Okay.
The sons, I guess, are bringing stones to the house.
Okay. Or carrying, but yeah.
Or carrying.
Yeah, carrying or bringing. Yeah, either way. That's good.
Or carrying. Okay. I'll write that down too. How can you be sure that weoi is nominative plural masculine? I just put, rather than vocative plural masculine, I just said it's a subject being designated. So it had to be nominative plural.
Okay.
That's what I put.
I would say in there, there's one other cue for you here, and that is Huioi has what? What precedes it?
The article, the.
Yeah, that's a definite article. And
right.
Normally in the vocative case, you do not have in the vocative case, you do not normally have a definite article. So
That's
it's just yeah, because you don't
vocative. Vocative doesn't have an article.
Yeah, the vocative. What
is that normal that a vocative would not have a definite article?
Because usually it'd be like saying, Joe, you need to do this right now.
Right.
Vocative, but you wouldn't say the Joe. You know.
Right.
So usually address a person with a definite article.
Right. You would say son.
Yes.
Not the son.
Right.
Got it. And then is oiko dative, locative, or instrumental? I put locative. It just indicates where the sons are carrying where the sons are carrying the stones to, right?
Okay.
Could it also be dative because the house is where they're carrying the stones to?
This exactly. This is the answer that I have written down here for myself. Is dative, or this could be locative. It kind of depends on how you want to emphasize the role that oikos is. Both of them have a similar sense in this case.
Right.
I'm taking them to that, or I'm
receiving the stones. Are they carrying the stones in order to build the house?
Right. or are you taking it to the house in terms of a location too? So both of them, this is one of those that you'd have to kind of think about how house is functioning in the context.
So again, context will determine that.
Yeah, it may. This is one that it may not, but this is one that you would hope that it would. Yeah. Okay. Good job. Good job. Okay. Now, I hate to say this, but my granddaughter, who is 3, is with us. And so would it be a problem if we did not have Greek on Thursday?
Yeah.
If we
Yeah, it'd be a brain rest.
before and what you can do if you are interested then, in fact, I would do that, is wouldn't have to necessarily work on the workbook, but it wouldn't hurt to start reading through chapter 4 on the first declension, on chapter 5, excuse me, on the first declension nouns. And so we move into that. And
Sure. Yeah.
okay, we'll do that, and then we'll pick up next Tuesday. I just because I really want, when we introduce this, I could sit down separately and try to go over this with Peggy, but she's got a very busy weekend coming up here, and I'm just trying to figure out when I would squeeze that in with her. So I think that would, since it's just a small Greek class, so maybe we can kind of do this. If I had a whole bunch of people, you can't make an exception for one person all the time, but I'd like to do it here. So
We can have a little.
Could we, that Tuesday I'll miss, so it seems like an important class. If you're going to be expressing, you'll be
you're
playing
not,
first declension for the first
you
time.
won't be here next Tuesday.
Right.
Okay.
So if you can do Thursday to start and give yourself an extra day, that'd be great.
Next day.
I don't know. That's up to Robin. I don't want to hold the class back. But
Yeah.
Well, I will work ahead and have no problem reviewing.
Let me think about that. One way or another, I will try by next Tuesday to have notes up online for what we're going to be covering. Of course, a lot of this is in the book. Most of the notes I have online are just kind of a synopsis of what's already in the textbook. But it's given me a way to kind of make it available for people that are joining us online, so that they can kind of see what we're looking at. But okay, well, I'll work on deciding what we're going to do for next Tuesday then. So we haven't been going long enough to take a mid-semester break yet. So yeah, we've only gone through 4 chapters. So okay. When I took my first Greek class, it was a night class. We met on Tuesday nights, and it was 2.5 hours, which seemed like a long time. But the problem was, there was such a long time between class that it was a whole week between all the time. That if you weren't diligent about working on your Greek every day outside of class, you'd come back and you'd find yourself kind of getting behind mentally. So keep working on this every day. Take a little time, sit down, kind of review your vocabulary, review your forms. Peggy was working on this. She put some charts together, which I'm going to try to put up online, where she designed some charts for filling in on to going and taking. She's taken every last noun that we learn as part of vocabulary and going through and breaking it out into the nominative form, genitive, ablative form, the lid form, the accusative form, vocative, and then going through the plural and filling that out on these sheets. And I'll try to put those sheets up online. And you just need to talk to her about whether those sheets are where she wants them to be. I'm looking at them. I think they're good as they are, but she thought she wanted to maybe tweak them a little bit. Okay. So we don't always close with prayer in this class, but I think we can. I'm just going to close it. I'd like to close with prayer because this is biblical Greek, not just Greek. So, Father, we're thankful for the fact that you've given us your word. We're thankful that we can read it in English, that we've had people that have worked hard to give us good English translations. We're also thankful that you make just an abundance of Greek resources available to us in terms of the many copies of the text in Greek. And that you give us the ability to learn that now so that we can read it and study it and make some of these decisions we trust for ourselves, or at least be party to that decision process. Thankful for this then, and ask that you just continue to help us as we work on learning Greek better. And we thank you for it then. Amen. Okay.
Hey, I would ask if I can have like, if Robin wouldn't mind, if she could have my phone number, or we can exchange so that if we have questions in between the week, we can run it by each other. I don't know if you're up to that, Robin.
Here.
I'm big on texting, Joe.
You're big on that?
Yeah.
Let me check this real quick here. I think
That would kind of help. Sometimes you're like, I don't know how to answer this, and see what, just run it by a classmate,
here, I'm going to, my wife tells me how to do this. There's a way to do this here. I'm going to share yours, Joe, there we go. So I sent that to her, and she can send back to you. And
Awesome.
And yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, because Peg sits by me in the chair in the evening if she's working on Greek, and if she has questions, she asks us. And we were trying to listen to people that go through different recitation methods online. I was listening to them on YouTube the other night. There's a guy out of Canada. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he teaches Greek, and he's got like a rap for the second declension endings, and it's not bad, but at the same time, there's a lot of extraneous stuff in the rap for me, and I like to kind of keep stuff stripped down to its basics. So I was just trying to help Peggy just get as, oo, ah, or as, oo, o, on, and I drop the vocative all the time, and then oi, on, ois, oos, except when you get to the plural, I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to rattle those off fast, it's a tongue twister, and my tongue gets wrapped around the back of my brain somewhere. So trying to remember that.
See.
So keep practicing those things. Okay. Well, with all that, have a great weekend.
Awesome.
And we will talk to you later. If you have any questions, Joe, you can always feel free to try to get a hold of me too. And if I can be of help also. Yeah,
absolutely. But sometimes it's nice to just talk to another classmate, Like I remember going to school, that was a great resource to be able to brainstorm together sometimes,
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. I fully get that. So just a second here.